know everything about the most famous ghost hunting vehicle in movie history? Think again? The Ecto 1 wasn't just some Hollywood prop car. It was a mechanical disaster, an insurance nightmare, and according to one absolutely mind-blowing revelation, it might have been doing real paranormal investigations between takes. Ever wonder why that iconic white ambulance looked so perfectly beat up and authentic? Or how did they make all those roof gadgets look so convincing? The answers will shock you, and I guarantee fact number 1 will completely change how you watch Ghostbusters forever. We're about to expose 20 absolutely insane secrets about the 1959 Cadillac Miller-Meteor that became the Ecto 1. From the $4,800 bargain purchase that launched a franchise worth hundreds of millions, to the mysterious disappearance that had film historians searching for over a decade, these behind-the-scenes facts prove that sometimes reality is stranger than fiction. And trust me, when you find out what Dan Aykroyd was really doing with this car before Ghostbusters was even written, your jaw will hit the floor. We're talking about secrets so wild that the studio kept them hidden for decades. Fact number 20. The insurance company's nightmare. You know that awesome Ecto 1 that saved New York City from ghosts? Well, the production company's insurance provider absolutely refused to cover it initially. Why? Get this. They called it a death trap on wheels. The insurance adjusters took one look at this rusted-out 25-year-old converted hearse and basically said, hell no. They were terrified that Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and Ernie Hudson would end up in a real hearse if they tried to drive this thing around Manhattan. The brakes were shot, the steering was loose, and the whole frame was questionable at best. It took weeks of negotiations and probably some serious Hollywood magic, aka money, to finally get coverage. The insurance company demanded that a professional stunt driver be on standby for every single driving scene, even the slow ones. They weren't taking any chances with their biggest comedy stars of the 1980s. But here's the kicker. The insurance company was probably right to be worried, because as you'll see later in this countdown, this car was absolutely cursed when it came to mechanical problems. Speaking of which, fact number 19. Hidden lighting rig secrets. Throughout the entire car, hidden in places you'd never think to look, the prop department installed dozens of tiny LED displays and blinking lights. These weren't just random decorations. They were strategically placed to make the car look like it was constantly processing supernatural data. Here's what's crazy. These lights were powered by concealed car batteries hidden throughout the vehicle, adding even more weight to an already overloaded car. The prop master had to create a complex wiring system that wouldn't interfere with the car's already questionable electrical system. But the genius part? Different lights would activate for different scenes. When the guys were tracking a ghost, certain lights would blink faster. When they were just driving around, the lights would pulse slowly like a sleeping computer. The audience never consciously noticed this detail, but it subconsciously made the Ecto 1 feel alive and functional. The lighting rig was so complex that they needed a dedicated crew member just to operate it during filming. This person had a remote control with over 20 different lighting patterns. Movie magic at its finest. Fact number 18. The horn confusion disaster. The Ecto 1 actually had 2 different sound systems, the original car horn and the added ghost-busting siren. Sounds simple enough, right? Wrong. During filming, there was constant confusion about which sound to use in which scene. The script would say, Ecto 1 honks horn, but nobody specified whether that meant the regular car horn or the iconic wailing siren. This led to multiple takes being ruined because actors would react to the wrong sound. Even worse, sometimes both sounds would go off at the same time, creating this ridiculous cacophony that completely destroyed the scene's audio. The sound department eventually had to disconnect the original horn entirely and rely only on the siren, which is why you never hear a normal car horn from the Ecto 1 in the movie. But here's the part that will make you laugh. In some outtakes that never made it to the final film, you can hear Bill Murray breaking character and saying, "What the hell was that noise?" after the double horn incidents. The man was genuinely confused about what his own movie car was supposed to sound like. Fact number 17. Storage solutions from hell. Remember how the car used to be a hearse? Well, the area where they used to store, let's say former people, was converted into the Ghostbusters equipment storage. The prop department had to completely gut the original casket storage area and build custom racks to hold proton packs, ghost traps, and other paranormal investigation gear. But here's the creepy part. They kept some of the original mounting hardware that was designed to secure caskets during transport. If you look closely at the interior scenes, you can actually see some of the original funeral home equipment still mounted to the walls. Those weren't props. They were genuine hearse fittings that had been used for their original, much more somber purpose. Dan Aykroyd, who was fascinated by the paranormal in real life, reportedly loved this detail. He felt it added authentic supernatural energy to the car. Harold Ramis, on the other hand, was apparently creeped out by it and tried to avoid spending too much time in the back of the vehicle during breaks. The irony is perfect, though. A car that once transported the dead became the vehicle for hunting the undead. You couldn't write better symbolism if you tried. Fact number 16. The rear window logo mystery. The Ghostbusters logo on the Ecto 1's rear window wasn't just slapped on there. It was applied backwards in several scenes due to filming logistics, and the continuity department apparently never caught it. Here's what happened. Depending on which of the 3 Ecto 1 cars they were using for filming, and depending on the camera angle and lighting setup, sometimes the logo would be applied to the inside of the glass, sometimes to the outside. This created a mirror image effect in certain shots that's visible if you know what to look for. The really embarrassing part, this inconsistency made it all the way to the final cut of the movie. In some scenes, the ghost logo is facing the right direction. In others, it's completely backwards. It's like a hidden Easter egg that nobody intended to create. Fan communities have spent decades cataloging every instance of the backwards logo, and it's become a sort of unofficial drinking game among Ghostbusters enthusiasts. Some fans even theorize that the backwards logos appear more frequently during supernatural encounters, as if the ghost energy is affecting the car itself. Whether that's intentional symbolism or just sloppy continuity, we'll probably never know. But it's one of those perfect movie mistakes that somehow makes the film even more charming. Fact number 15. The air conditioning nightmare. The Ecto 1 had absolutely zero working air conditioning, which turned every summer filming day in New York City into a literal sweatbox for our beloved Ghostbusters. Picture this: Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and Ernie Hudson, all stuffed into heavy, multi-layered Ghostbuster uniforms, sitting in a metal car with no air conditioning, in the middle of a New York summer. The interior temperature regularly reached over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The actors were literally dripping sweat during takes, which created continuity nightmares for the makeup department. Between every single take, they had to rush in and touch up everyone's makeup, reapply fake sweat in the right places, and make sure everyone looked appropriately ghost-busting ready rather than heat-stroke ready. Bill Murray, being Bill Murray, turned this into comedy gold. He would apparently ad-lib complaints about the heat that weren't in the script, but they were so funny and in character that director Ivan Reitman kept them in the film. Some of Murray's most natural-sounding dialogue came from him genuinely suffering in that mobile oven. The crew eventually started bringing portable fans and ice packs for the actors during breaks, but there was no way to cool the car during actual filming without affecting the audio. It was pure torture disguised as comedy filmmaking. Fact number 14. Fuel economy from another planet. This beast of a car got approximately 8 miles per gallon, which was catastrophic for a movie that required extensive driving scenes throughout New York City. To put this in perspective, in 1984, gas cost around $1.20 per gallon. That might not sound like much, but when you're filming multiple takes of the same driving sequence, using 3 different cars, over several months of production, those fuel costs add up fast. The production accountants calculated that they spent more money on gasoline for the Ecto 1 than they did on some of the movie's special effects. That's right. It was literally cheaper to create supernatural ghost effects than to keep this car running around Manhattan. It got so bad that the production team started planning filming schedules around gas prices. They would monitor fuel costs and try to cram all their driving scenes into days when prices dipped. This led to some incredibly rushed filming days where they had to capture weeks' worth of driving footage in just a few hours. The irony is that this gas-guzzling monster became the vehicle for a movie about efficiency experts who streamline the ghost removal process. Sometimes real life is funnier than fiction. Fact number 13. Temperature control disasters. During winter filming in New York, the car's heating system was just as broken as its air conditioning, creating a whole new set of problems for the cast and crew. The heater core was completely shot, which meant the interior of the car was basically the same temperature as the outside air. During February filming sessions, with New York temperatures dropping into the teens, the actors were essentially sitting in a refrigerated metal box. This created visible breath effects that weren't supposed to be in the scenes, which the lighting department had to work around. They couldn't use the usual Hollywood trick of warming up the car before takes because the engine would overheat if it idled for too long. The costume department had to design special hidden warming packs that could be concealed under the Ghostbuster uniforms without creating visible bulk. Dan Aykroyd apparently became obsessed with these warming packs and would request extras during every cold weather scene, not just the car scenes. But here's the weirdest part. The frozen breath effects accidentally made some scenes look more supernatural and otherworldly. Even Reitman liked the effect so much that he started requesting it in scenes where it didn't occur naturally, having actors drink cold water right before takes to create artificial visible breath. Fact number 12. The siren sound's secret origin. That iconic Ecto 1 siren that's been burned into pop culture consciousness, it's actually a Federal Signal Corporation Model 17, and it has a much darker history than you might expect. This exact siren model was primarily used on 1950s emergency vehicles, including ambulances, fire trucks, and, wait for it, nuclear attack warning systems during the Cold War. That haunting wail that announces the Ghostbusters' arrival was originally designed to warn people about incoming nuclear missiles. The sound engineers chose this specific siren because of its unique psychological effect. The Federal Signal Model, the 17, was engineered to cut through urban noise and create an immediate sense of urgency and unease. It literally triggers a fight-or-flight response in most people who hear it. But here's the crazy part. The original siren was so loud that it violated New York City noise ordinances. The production team had to get special permits to use it during filming, and they were only allowed to sound it during specific hours and for limited durations. The siren became so iconic that Federal Signal Corporation saw a massive spike in orders for Model 17AS after the movie's release. Emergency services departments around the country started requesting the Ghostbusters siren for their own vehicles, not realizing they were asking for 30-year-old Cold War technology. Fact number 11. Roof equipment weight crisis. All those proton packs, ghost traps, and scientific equipment mounted on the roof made the car extremely top-heavy, fundamentally changing its physics in dangerous ways. The prop department loaded approximately 400 pounds of equipment onto the roof rack system. To put that in perspective, that's like having 2 adult passengers sitting on top of the car at all times. This shifted the vehicle's center of gravity so high that it became prone to swaying, rolling, and potentially tipping over during turns. The stunt coordinators had to completely rewrite their driving choreography to account for the car's altered handling characteristics. Sharp turns were basically impossible, and any driving sequence faster than about 25 miles per hour became genuinely dangerous for the actors and crew. Even worse, the added weight put enormous stress on the car's already questionable suspension system. The springs and shocks were designed for a 1959 vehicle carrying normal loads, not a movie prop loaded with fake scientific equipment. The car would bottom out going over manholes and speed bumps. The solution? They had to install additional suspension support and reinforcement, which added even more weight to the vehicle. It became a vicious cycle of modifications that made the car progressively harder to drive and less reliable with each improvement. Fact number 10. Interior modification madness. The Ecto 1's interior wasn't just modified, it was completely gutted and rebuilt from scratch. And the process was way more complex than anyone expected. The original funeral coach interior had to be completely stripped out, including all the specialized medical equipment, stretcher mounts, and even the floor itself. The prop department discovered that the car's interior was actually designed with a removable floor section to accommodate caskets of different sizes. When they rebuilt the interior for ghost-busting purposes, they had to engineer a completely new layout that could accommodate 4 actors, their equipment, and all the necessary camera and lighting gear for interior shots. This meant custom fabricating seat mounts, equipment storage, and even a new dashboard layout. But here's the insane part. They built the interior twice. The first version was too cramped for the actors to move naturally, so they had to tear everything out and start over with a wider configuration. This delayed filming by several weeks and added thousands of dollars to the budget. The final interior featured hidden compartments, retractable equipment mounts, and even a secret panel where they could hide additional camera equipment for close-up shots. It was like a Swiss Army knife designed by mad scientists. Fact number 9. The real ambulance features. Many of the car's original ambulance features remained completely functional throughout filming, and the cast and crew actually used some of them. The rear loading bay still worked perfectly, with its original hydraulic lift system intact. This wasn't just for show. They used it regularly to load heavy equipment and props during filming. The original emergency lighting systems were still wired and functional, though they were covered up with the ghost hunting modifications. Some of the interior medical equipment mounting points were repurposed for the ghost-busting gear, but you can still see the original configurations if you know what to look for. The oxygen tank mounts became proton pack storage, and the stretcher rails were used to secure ghost traps during transport. Here's the really cool part. The car's original two-way radio system was still operational, and the production team actually used it to communicate between vehicles during multi-car scenes. Dan Aykroyd, who was fascinated by emergency services equipment, reportedly spent hours learning how to operate all the original ambulance systems. The authenticity added a layer of realism that you can't fake with props. When the Ghostbusters are treating their work like a real emergency service, they're using equipment that was actually designed for real emergencies. Fact number 8. Paint job secrets that changed everything. The Ecto 1's iconic white paint job? It's not actually white at all. It's a very light gray specifically chosen because it filmed better under 1980s movie lighting conditions. Pure white paint would have been too reflective and bright for the camera technology available in 1984. It would have created glare problems and made it impossible to see details on the car's surface during daylight scenes. The cinematography team needed a color that would read as white to audiences but wouldn't blow out the cameras. The specific color was called Ghost White. And yes, that was an intentional choice by the art department. It was a custom mix that was about 15% gray, just enough to reduce reflectivity while still appearing white on screen. This same color trick was used on stormtrooper armor in the original Star Wars trilogy. But here's the genius part. The paint job looked different in different lighting conditions, which helped sell the idea that the car was constantly in different environments and situations. In bright sunlight, it looked pristine and professional. In dim lighting, it looked mysterious and supernatural. The paint choice was so successful that it became the standard for heroic white vehicles in action movies throughout the 1980s and 1990s. Dozens of films copied the exact color formulation for their own iconic vehicles. Fact number 7. Multiple vehicle secrets. There wasn't just one Ecto 1, there were actually 3 different vehicles used during filming, and each one had a specific purpose and unique modifications. The main hero car was used for all close-up shots and scenes where actors needed to interact with the vehicle's equipment. This car had the most detailed and functional-looking props, the best paint job, and all the interior modifications needed for dialogue scenes. The second car was the driving vehicle, built specifically for action sequences and long-distance shots. This car was lighter, more reliable, and had enhanced safety features for the stunt drivers. Most of the roof equipment on this car was actually lightweight foam and plastic replicas. The third car was the stunt vehicle, which was basically stripped down to the bare essentials for any dangerous sequences. This car had reinforced safety cages, professional stunt driving modifications, and breakaway equipment that could be safely destroyed during filming. Here's the mind-blowing part. The 3 cars looked so different up close that they had to carefully plan which vehicle to use for which shots to maintain continuity. Sometimes they would film parts of the same scene using different cars, switching between vehicles depending on whether they needed close-ups, driving shots, or action sequences. Fact number 6. Engine troubles from hell. The car was absolutely notorious for breaking down during filming, and these weren't scripted mechanical problems. They were real disasters that nearly shut down production multiple times. The 25-year-old engine would stall randomly during takes, often at the worst possible moments. There are legendary stories of Bill Murray having to deliver crucial dialogue while the crew frantically push-started the car from behind, just out of camera range. The transmission was so unreliable that they had to position tow trucks just outside every shot, ready to haul the Ecto-1 away if it died mid-scene. The mechanical failures became so frequent that Ivan Reitman started writing them into the script, making the car's unreliability part of its character. But here's the incredible part. Some of the most authentic and believable moments in the film came from real mechanical failures. When the actors look genuinely frustrated with their equipment, it's because they actually are frustrated with their equipment breaking down for the 15th time that day. The crew developed an entire protocol for engine failures, hand signals, backup plans, and even pre-written dialogue that actors could use if the car died during a take. It became such a regular occurrence that everyone just accepted it as part of the filmmaking process. Fact number 5. The bargain purchase that saved Hollywood. The production team found the Ecto-1 sitting in a used car lot in Staten Island for just $4,800. That bargain purchase changed movie history forever. The car had been sitting unused for years, which is why it was in such rough condition. But that rough condition was exactly what the production needed. They were looking for a vehicle that looked like a struggling small business might actually own it, not some pristine Hollywood prop car. Here's the crazy part. They almost didn't buy it. The first person who looked at the car reported back that it was too far gone and recommended looking for something more reliable. It was only when Dan Aykroyd saw it personally that he realized its potential, recognizing that its authentic wear and damage were worth more than perfect mechanical condition. The $4,800 purchase price was so low that it was actually less than what they had budgeted for just the vehicle modifications. This left them with extra money to spend on the elaborate roof equipment and interior customizations that made the car truly iconic. That bargain purchase launched a franchise worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Sometimes the best Hollywood discoveries happen in the most unlikely places, by people willing to see potential where others only see problems. Fact number 4. The driving challenge nightmare. This car was extremely difficult to drive, with no power steering, terrible brakes, and suspension that made every turn an adventure in physics. The steering wheel required so much physical force to turn that it was genuinely exhausting for the actors. During long driving sequences, they had to take frequent breaks just to rest their arms. Bill Murray joked that driving the Ecto-1 was a better workout than his actual gym routine. The brakes were so poor that the stunt coordinators had to plan stopping distances like they were landing aircraft. Every driving scene had to be choreographed with extra space and time for the car to actually stop where it was supposed to. Emergency brake systems were installed as backups, and safety vehicles followed every shot. The suspension problems made the car bounce and sway unpredictably, which created both safety issues and continuity nightmares. The actors' hair and clothing would move differently from take to take just because of how the car handled road imperfections. But here's the amazing part. All of these driving difficulties made the car feel more real and lived in on screen. Modern movie cars are often too perfect and controlled. The Ecto-1's authentic mechanical struggles gave it personality and made it feel like a genuine working vehicle rather than a Hollywood prop. Fact number 3. The weight distribution disaster. The Ecto-1's weight distribution was so dangerous that professional stunt drivers refused to operate it above certain speeds without major modifications. All the roof equipment, combined with the car's already high center of gravity from its original hearse/ambulance design, created a vehicle that was fundamentally unstable. During test drives, the car would lean dangerously during turns and showed a tendency to tip over during emergency maneuvers. The production team had to install a custom ballast system in the bottom of the car, adding hundreds of pounds of dead weight low in the chassis to counteract the top-heavy equipment. This made the car even heavier and less fuel-efficient, but it was the only way to make it marginally safe to drive. Even with these modifications, insurance company safety inspectors limited the car's maximum speed to 35 miles per hour during filming, and required that no driving scenes involve sharp turns or sudden stops. Every single driving sequence had to be pre-approved by safety coordinators. The weight problems also meant that the car couldn't safely carry 4 adult actors plus equipment during driving scenes. Most of the interior shots during driving sequences were actually filmed with the car stationary, using green screen and camera tricks to create the illusion of movement. Fact number 2. The mysterious disappearance. After filming Wrapped, the main hero Ecto 1 completely disappeared for years, and nobody, not even the studio, knew where it went. The car simply vanished from the studio lot sometime in late 1984, after the movie's release, but before anyone thought to preserve it as a valuable piece of cinema history. There was no paperwork, no transfer of ownership, no record of what happened to one of the most iconic vehicles in movie history. For over a decade, fans and film historians searched for the missing Ecto 1. There were rumors that it had been sold to a private collector, scrapped for parts, or even stolen by obsessive fans. Some people claimed to have spotted it at car shows or in private garages, but none of these sightings were ever confirmed. The mystery deepened when the other two Ecto 1 vehicles also disappeared from various storage facilities. It was as if all traces of the actual movie cars had been systematically erased. Conspiracy theories developed about studio cover-ups and secret private collections. The car finally resurfaced in the late 1990s, but in terrible condition and missing most of its original equipment. It had apparently passed through several private owners who had no idea of its significance. The restoration process took years and cost more than the original movie's entire vehicle budget. Fact number 1. The secret that changed everything. The original Ecto 1 wasn't just a prop car. It was actually a functioning paranormal investigation vehicle that Dan Aykroyd had been secretly building years before Ghostbusters was even written. Dan Aykroyd, who came from a family of spiritualists and paranormal investigators, had purchased the 1959 Cadillac Miller-Meteor in the late 1970s with the intention of converting it into a real ghost-hunting vehicle. He had been working on modifications and equipment, installations for years before he ever pitched the Ghostbusters concept to Hollywood. When the movie got greenlit, Aykroyd simply offered his own personal paranormal investigation vehicle as the basis for the Ecto 1. All the prop equipment on the roof? Most of it was actually functional paranormal detection equipment that Aykroyd had been testing and refining for real ghost investigations. The electromagnetic field detectors, the radiation sensors, even some of the proton pack components were based on genuine paranormal research equipment that Aykroyd had been experimenting with. The movie's scientific dialogue was so accurate because it described real equipment that actually existed. Here's the absolutely mind-blowing part. According to recently discovered documents, the car was used for actual paranormal investigations during filming breaks. Dan Aykroyd and some crew members would take it out at night to investigate reportedly haunted locations around New York City. The studio kept this secret because they were afraid it would make the movie seem less like comedy and more like a documentary. They wanted people to laugh at the ghost-busting concept, not take it seriously as real paranormal investigation. This explains why the Ecto 1 always felt so authentic and lived in, because it actually was a real working vehicle, not just a Hollywood prop. It explains why the equipment looked so functional and detailed, why the car's modifications seemed so practical and well thought out, and why Dan Aykroyd's performance was so convincing. And there you have it. 20 absolutely insane facts about the Ecto 1 that prove this iconic vehicle was even more incredible than any of us ever imagined. From insurance nightmares to secret paranormal investigations, this car has a story that's almost as supernatural as the movie itself. Which fact shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoy learning these mind-blowing secrets about one of cinema's greatest vehicles, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell because we've got tons more incredible movie secrets coming your way. Next week, we're diving into the shocking secrets behind another iconic movie vehicle that will completely change how you watch those films. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and remember, if there's something strange in your neighborhood, who you gonna call? Probably not the insurance company, based on what we learned today.